we're going to do. Okay. Right, gotta drop the capture real quick so everyone can see the Mike Gapes technical difficulties image.
Oh yeah, I know what I need to do. I need to get up the chat so that I can.
Yeah. Hold on. Do you guys want me to drop a link in the thing?
I've just seen it in the Twitter notifications.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know though. This is intended for mature audiences. I think I better go and consult my folks.
Right, got it up now.
Yeah, like I do the intended for mature audiences things, basically to cover my ass, because I never know what people are going to say on here. Like,
because fucking advert going on.
Yeah, that'll happen. I just mute the tab.
I just muted it. Okay, I got
it. Also, I need to, on that note, actually have the thing up for other reasons, so I can make sure it's not broken. Okay, it's not broken. Good. All right. If you're here, you should say hi now, because otherwise we're just gonna go, and I won't do any of the cool introduction stuff, which is everyone's favorite bit of the stream. That's what everyone's here for. Arskeen here, Mark's here. All right, I'm sold. Arskeen is here. That's all I need. I do actually know Arskeen, by the way. That's not me just like picking on one of my viewers. I do know him. AFK.
Oh, it's doing the weird thing again.
Oh yeah, POV Jack happening again. Right, hold on, everyone. I'm gonna do a little bit of housekeeping, which is I have enabled the asking the question function, so you simply click on the golden coin with Tony Blair's face on it, you click on ask a question, and you ask, for example, you ask that question, for example, and the answer is you get it at my merch store. So you two can visit La/Gapes. Otherwise, you know why we're here. It's the book we've all been waiting for. It's the most important book. It's the most important book that has ever been released.
Where are we?
We're reviewing Change, the Independent Group, which is the real title of this actual book that I had to read. And I'm lucky because I'm joined by two veteran experts in the field of the Independent Group and Mike Gapes. Friends of the stream, Jack and Geraint, who can introduce themselves. You will probably know who they are, but they can introduce themselves now if they like.
Hello, I'm Jack Frayne Reed. I'm a public intellectual. I'm I'm one of the hosts of the Real Politic podcast, the voice of Mike Gapes in Gapecast, of which I'm the co-creator, which will be very important in this forthcoming stream.
Yep.
And also I am a writer, including for New Socialist, and I record music under the moniker Crazy Moose. I'm considering changing it. And I'm really tired. I'm just putting that out there at the start. So I'm going to give this my all, but I am really kind of tripping. I'm so tired.
Hello, I'm Geraint. I'm one of the other hosts of the Real Politic podcast. We're taking over Sinan's stream yet again. I'm also always up for any chance to dunk on the Change UK crew. And I do the podcast. I don't do anything like the Ranger stuff Jack does other than that, unfortunately. I would also like, you can follow me on Twitter at WarioTifo if you don't already. And I would like to apologise for using the picture of DDP, the wrestler, as my display picture, because he has today endorsed Brian Rose, the crank anti-lockdown candidate for London mayor. Implausibly.
Well,
no. You've got to refer to him
incredible heel turn.
The piss candidate. He's the piss drinking candidate, Brian.
He is
Rose.
literally a piss drinking
that
candidate.
guy who drinks piss. Yeah. No, so that's usually the Lib Dems. I mean, he's parking his tanks on their lawn.
Yeah,
I've always said we don't need no government cramping our style. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
And also, I would like to point out that Brian Rose is also one of the many YouTubers running for London Mayor, and there's a very funny video of him talking to a Chinese jerking off expert. So don't watch that after the stream, but that's a real video that exists, and it's fucking amazing. What's less amazing is this book. I I don't know if we want to just dive in and go through it page by page and just tear these people apart, or do we want to give like a quick summary of how awful this book is?
Quick? How are we going to do quick?
That's true.
I am probably going to fall asleep at some point in this stream, probably during when we're talking about one of the Anne Coffey bits, or the Anna Subri sections that I just went through, and literally, most of them I was like highlighting stuff, but Subri's all went on for like 5 fucking pages, so I just wrote across all the pages, piss nonsense.
Yeah, if I had to give one note, too much Subri, not enough gapes. That is...
Yeah, Chris Leslie's really boring as well, but he's got like some gripes and bitching, which is kind of fun.
At least that's fun, yeah. Should we just dive in then?
Yeah.
I've got the ebook up, so everyone's gonna need to bear with me. Also, I think it's worth noting that like they have the introduction and then they have the bit with our values, and they immediately
our values are under attack. Tim Heidecker on Cinema Head.
Everyone, who knew that the independent group had values before reading this book? I don't think I did.
That's all they have, you know. They're not ideological. They don't have an ideology. They're just all about values and evidence-based solutions.
Yeah, that comes up, the evidence-based bit of it. Is Chuka in it? Chuka is referred to, definitely, and not necessarily in a positive way. Also, thank you for watching this at 4 a.m. in Australia. Damn, that's how powerful the pull of Mike Gapes is.
Mike Gapes on the pull, that's a frightening prospect.
Okay, I want to go through the values that they have, because they're just kind of... I've got notes for them. So, we believe ours is a great country of which people are rightly proud, where the first duty of government must be to defend its people and do whatever it takes to safeguard Britain's national security. And I wrote here, I must have been reading this quite late at night, big centrist populism klaxon going off in my flat, waking up my partner, implying that I was reading this quite late. So we're already off to that's going to be recurring, by the way. National security is a thing they're really upset about.
I noticed that in their little thing, before their our values statement, it just says the independent group of MPs. So that's their leaving Labour statement. And literally, there's one little paragraph about like how they're leaving, and then like that's like 3 lines, and then immediately Labour now pursues policies that would weaken our national security, accept the narrative of states hostile to our country, if you know what I mean. Russia.
Yeah, they call out Russia by name. Several times.
Pretty into Russia, yeah. Not into hating Russia. And then there's 2 other bits that I've just linked and written war. They're talking about how it's passive in circumstances of international humanitarian distress. Okay, they don't want to bomb people. And Chris Leslie sort of reiterates that later. And then finally, what will be an abiding theme of the book, they are very opposed to the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn's economic policy. From a right, of course. And yes, they believe that Labour's economic agenda, again, under Corbyn, because who knows if that's the party's economic agenda anymore, would destabilise the British economy in pursuit of ideological objectives. Again, because, of course, Cuck don't have ideology.
Yeah. None of this is ideological. One of the things I will say, like, most of their values are literally just meaningless word salad. And I'm going to read one of them out, and you can tell me which leader of going into an election wanted this. The people of this country have the ability to create fairer, more prosperous communities for present and future generations. We believe that this creativity is best realized in a society which fosters individual freedom and supports all families. Which leader of a major party went into an election with policies that would have met that?
Yeah, I reckon Gavin Shuker added that bit about family values, if you know what I mean. Yeah, fluoride in the water, I'm telling you, watch that stuff, okay?
There was also another one, which which was I'm not going to read the one that I sent to John Duncan to troll him. I'll read another one. As part of the global community, we have a responsibility to future generations to protect our environment, safeguard the planet, plan development sustainably, and to act on the urgency of climate change. And so they want a somewhat planned economy to protect the environment. I don't know which party leader could have offered us a path to have that. Who knows? Who could say? Who knows what his name is? Is it Jiminy Cribbins? Who could say?
No, it's not Chuka Umunna for unspecified reasons. Yeah, I mean, I went through this our values statement, and I just basically highlighted not sentences, but just phrases. So I noticed market economy, national security, balanced economy. As in, like, plenty of capitalism in there, if you know what I mean. Maybe balanced in favor of one over the other, if you know what I mean. Individuals, individual freedom, individuals, individuals, extension of opportunity, individuals, responsibility, opportunities, contribution to society, free media, the rule of law. Then there's a bit which Chris Leslie obviously wrote about how we believe that our parliamentary democracy, not the members of the Labour Party whom Chris Leslie hates, is good. And then following that, challenges, globalization and migration and technological advances, the usual spiel about why people's jobs need to go. Multilateral international rules-based order. There's that rules-based order. And then European, and then the big things, trade, regulation, defense, security, and counter-terrorism. And then there's a bit about climate change, which is like less than 4 lines long. And then power should be devolved to the most appropriate level.
Meaning us.
Meaning us, yeah, exactly. Our mates, like Chris Leslie and his wife in Nottingham, Mike Gapes and the Gape Goons in Ilford South, etc.
Yeah, hold on. Person in the room, you type very loudly and it's getting picked up by my mic. Could you not type so that loud? Sorry, just addressing loud typing.
Sure that's not right.
No, I'm sure, because I can hear it through my headphones.
Once I'm not typing,
I just saw the video that someone...
loud mechanical keyboard alone.
I just saw the video that someone posted in the chat. Oh my god, Keith punching a punching bag is the best thing I've ever seen. Thank you to him for that.
Why? No, it's not. It's not. It's just a photo op for Keir Starmer. Don't indulge it. Don't spread that man's propaganda.
But, okay, so...
Maybe take the video and do some Gape shit on. I don't know, something with it that debases and humiliates him. But
put a picture of a Deliveroo rider on the punch bag.
Yeah, good one. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, don't share that shit. But let's not spread right wing propaganda, folks.
That's right. Let's not do it.
Not platform extremism.
Yeah. I do like this sentence here. Although they did not achieve their aspiration, a new party that would lead a change in British politics, they did show that there was a huge appetite for change. People were looking for something new, something different. And I'm like, did they? What the fuck did they do for that?
The conclusion they draw for that, though, they're like, oh, it's the appetite for something new, something different. But it has to start with people, like an acknowledgement that you don't get anywhere else in the book. Like, oh yeah, that's where we fucked up.
So they just start with people.
I kind of like the flex where they're like, they had more followers than momentums on Twitter, and I'm like, I thought Twitter wasn't real life. Like,
bullshit. I don't believe that. I think that's made up. Like, I don't care. So you may come at me, but you can prove anything with facts. I think that's bollocks.
Most of Momentum's followers on Twitter would probably have been Momentum members at some point or done a little bit of activism, in many cases quite a lot. Change UK, okay, every journalist followed them, every centrist followed them, but most of them were like members of the Lib Dems or stayed in Labour on the Labour right, or just were following them to try and somehow own Momentum, and it didn't mean anything.
And I think
perfect example of Twitter not actually being inherently important.
Sarah from RP and Leftover is correct in the chat, I think, when she says that bots are involved. I think that a lot of those so-called numbers were not real people, not authentic accounts. They were just gape goons.
Also, I enjoy Psychic Fromage's question, does it read like George Bush Sr.'s memoir from The Simpsons? It's more embarrassing. It's genuinely a more embarrassing... It's terribly formatted in places. I'm going to complain about
there's
a
loads
lot of
of
stuff.
Errors and shit, like misplaced apostrophes and shit. Just on Grant's point about how like every fucking journalist would have been following them. They were so like dependent on the mainstream media. Like there's like stories of Chris Leslie like literally calling up Laura Koonsberg and like begging, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I know it's a school night, but please, can you leak this?" The story that we're going to leave the party, basically. He called her up and just like, it's just so like, that's someone debasing themselves, Chris Leslie, like in the years after the 2017 election. Because he's just straight up like, after the 2017 election, it became clear to me that Corbyn could do it again, and possibly even better. And I still think he could have done.
And I'm like, we know. That was why we understand that was why you did what you did. Like,
exactly.
There's a whole lot of them being like, look, while this issue was very important, I was really pissed off about this other issue. They keep, like, refusing to take the, like, win and just constantly try and drive their point harder when they don't need to. But that's, like, a bit later in the book. There's also this bit where the author, who's Anne Coffey, basically insists that...
totally Anne Coffey.
Yeah, it's Anne Coffey, let's be real. It was just edited by the person on the cover, saying the appetite is still there, the opportunity to create change is still there, and I'm like, what change? And, like, there must not have been much appetite for it if Mike Gapes was your most successful candidate at the 2019 general election.
Well, exactly, but also Peter McNabb doesn't exist. I'm just throwing that out there. He didn't edit the book. Anne Coffey edited the book.
Which reflects poorly on her, I reckon, at this point.
The majority of Anne Coffey's sections under her own name pretty short. It feels like she put most of her energy into this project in an editorial capacity. So props to Anne for not wanting to hog the limelight with this New York Times bestseller. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it's rocketing up the sales chart. I'm pretty sure I bought it and it jumped like 2,000 places because it was so low down. So
really, because like a bunch. I guess this is how like fucking marginalized the left is getting to be. It's just like a fucking like 20 of us who want to laugh at Mike Gapes and all that podcasts. Like I saw like people posting. Like I saw Alex Doherty from Politics Theory Other, like a venerable left intellectual, posting a picture of his copy. Like maybe it is just like a handful of people on the left who are buying it to laugh at Mike Gapes.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, because otherwise it's not a good sign.
There's like a huge endorsement on the back though.
Oh yeah, I don't have the physical.
A big heavyweight. Oh yeah, no, it says the actions of the 5 members of parliament are a challenge to a party system which, instead of protecting against extremism, can become the vehicle for it. And that endorsement is from Peter Anne Coffey McNabb, the supposed editor of this book.
Yeah, God, we think Anne Coffey wrote it. All right, everyone. Like, I don't think we could be any clearer about what we think has gone on.
Right. You advanced this theory, didn't you? Sorry,
which was that? Sorry, which one?
You advanced the Anne Coffey theory as well, didn't you? I just want to get everyone in on this.
I believe so. Yeah, let me just check. Sorry, just jumping around this fucking ebook.
He's gonna check his list of things that he's...
Seriously, do I forget who killed JFK? No, I don't. It's Mike Gapes. Like,
that's right.
No, the ebook, the copyright page at the end of it just has all rights reserved, copyright and Coffey 2021.
Yeah, that's how I figured it out.
Copyright to Anne Coffey, the right of Anne Coffey to be identified, etc., etc. But like, in theory, there's 6 of them, and if they're going to credit it to one person, it would make sense for it to be this alleged editor. But No, it's just Anne Coffey.
Yeah,
So I
just say
think she's probably
copyright
the
Anne
one that's done the running on putting the project together.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first section of the book, which we'll come to in a second, is like
Identified as the author of this work.
Yeah.
Has been inserted, blah, blah, blah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this shit gets deeper by the minute.
This has just reminded me that Chris Leslie was a Labour MP in the city I live in, so that made me sad again.
Do you think Peter McNab is a nom de plume inspired by like Andy McNab?
Yes, I think the specific choice of name probably came from Gapes. He seems like he'd like all these sort of all action military daring do type tales.
Oh man, yeah. There's a lot of Gapes. Not enough Gapes, but there's a lot more than we usually get to see from him.
Fair play to him. He makes it count. He makes his pages
bio
count.
Is fucking amazing.
Yes, like, it's so like good.
It's like 50 times longer than everyone else's fucking like little mini memoir.
In fairness, he's an eternal being, so he had to he has quite a lot of material to go off. He couldn't really talk about his time being a Viking in Sardinia, so that had to be cut from the final version of the book. But I also I'm just gonna offer a gripe here, which is that Jeremy Corbyn was elected as Labour leader, which is where our story really begins. And my note here is then start the story there. Every single one of these books I read, they refuse to start the story where they say the story starts, and it just pisses. And like, this is like me having to proofread shit brain coming out, where I'm like, just start where you think it starts.
Actually, I'm going to respectfully disagree here because I think I totally agree with the historical approach taken by this book, which is that history as we know it, time as we know it even, began in 1992 when Michael John Gapes and, of course, Anne Coffey were first elected to Parliament. That comes after. It might be useful to have some background and contextualizing. In 1992, so that basically everything here is framed as being kind of like the modernizing project of the 90s is Grand Last Gap. Gasp, not gap, gape.
Gape, yeah.
Gape. Fuck that up.
Brad Pitt starring as Mike Gapes, for goodness sake. Can we not lave a terrible movie out of this? Because I don't want to have to watch it on stream with everyone.
I guess, like, is there anything else in their fucking intro that's like?
There is the bit about the EHRC report where they just wildly misread the situation.
Oh, that's bullshit. Yeah, I literally just highlighted Mike Gapes' name the first time it comes up. I was just high as shit, like, yeah, Mike Gapes.
That's right. We need to see that Mike Gapes right there.
I wrote PG post Gapes. I think I was trying to like come up with an ADBC kind of thing for like.
But we can't pinpoint the exact age of Gapes, therefore we can't have like a post Gapes based.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like he says this weird shit like, whilst I am not superstitious, I sometimes find coincidences a bit spooky. Anne Coffey says, and then immediately cut to the EHRC report coming out. Like, is it the date? Like, what is it? The 29th of October 2020? What's that about?
I was reading, I'm on the Anne Coffey section of it now, like, and I'm just looking at it and I'm like, man, she melted super hard. Like,
wait, do you mean the Anne Coffey section or the introduction?
No, I mean the actual section.
Okay,
yeah,
the actual biography.
This is confusing because she is.
That I've made then.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. But yeah, she is definitely the author of the book. Anyway, it was made very clear in the copyright section.
We're already getting like serious Anne Coffey truther shit going.
I'm not even convinced Anne Coffey is real, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I don't understand how such a non-entity could be an MP for so long, and yet she was. So
Anne Coffey, Mike Gapes. Yeah, all right, come on, whatever. Like pull the other one.
Yeah, like Mike Gapes, I could kind of take because like it's such a like. Powerfully...
take Gapes.
But yeah, turns out her dad was a Tory, which perhaps explains why she was a Tory later in life.
Zing.
There you go. That was literally my note. I wrote these really late. Like, I'm very obviously tired when I'm writing these. So because I'm like pissed off when I write these. So
he was proud that he'd got on. He saw the Tories as supporting people like himself who got on. Then Anne Coffey became left wing briefly.
Yeah.
And as all incredibly right-wing people seem to for a time.
I would also like to say that she was vice president of the Students' Union, which explains the melting quite some... Yeah, there you go.
Oh my god, this is an amazing, like, I'm a fucking weirdo who is just a fucking... my main takeaway from this book is, like, these people are fucking freaks. Like, Jesus Christ, they are aliens. So, just like, here, just potted highlights from this paragraph about, like, Anne Coffey's fucking, like, career in Parliament. I've had a very interesting parliamentary career. Citation needed. And particularly the years Labour Party was in power, you know, that blah, blah, blah thing, power. She's talking about how she worked for Alistair Darling. She says, Alistair's book, Back from the Brink, has been described as a heck of a good read.
Unlike this book.
Yeah. And she was privileged to sit in on some remarkably interesting meetings. Yeah, I'm sure. Just as interesting as her very interesting parliamentary career. Anyway, Alistair Campbell, no, not Campbell, everyone hates him, Darling, was well respected by everyone. Everyone loved him because he took difficult decisions in the public interest and had integrity. So just so weird. Just
deeply strange people. Yeah, I basically didn't highlight most of her chapter because I'm like, I don't fucking care.
It's the single most boring part of the entire book. Like,
yeah.
the five of them all have their distinct characters and quirks, and hers is just that she has nothing to add.
Yeah, like, the one interesting thing she has to say is she's like, oh man, I'm so upset that, like, councils can't do provision of services. And I'm like, yeah, damn, if only someone would, would have fixed that. I don't, like...
She goes on about grooming gangs, like... 4 pages. I guess.
Yeah. Well.
I don't know. So it includes a sentence to give Theresa May her credit. I didn't see the sentence to give Jeremy Corbyn his credit anywhere in this book, I don't think.
I saw the nicest thing that's said about Jeremy Corbyn is said by Joan Ryan, actually.
Yeah, and then
she says, like,
Nazi.
Yeah, she says, like, I've had many amiable and, fine dealings with Jeremy Corbyn because he's a North London MP and I had to work with him. But also, I think he's the biggest, danger in the history of the world. So who's to say, like...
Yeah, can we just skip the Soubs thing? Because, like, it is
No, fuck that. I'm not interested. Her story is, like, profoundly uninteresting because she is just, like, a typical Tory. Yeah.
It does start off pretty funny. It's a picture of her at a Remain rally then. My mother worked pretty much all her life in Doncaster. In the 1960s, she came across a young doctor who had come over from Uganda. And it's just, everything she says in this book is just this rambling anecdote shit.
Her bit about her mum is like a sort of praising of tolerance, which, fine, I guess. It's not... a thing I don't particularly enjoy that as a political framing, but whatever. It's her section of the book. She can write what she likes.
Her first paragraph is, bloody hell, go chum, have some champagne. You know I'm not a racist.
There is one interesting bit here, actually, where she's like, when she voted for equal marriage, she was in the same lobby as Labour Sensibles. Does that mean Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell are Labour Sensibles? Because famously,
they were voting. They were like trying to amend it to like pass really, really strict restrictions on everything. They are the most homophobic guys in Parliament.
I mean,
because of Iran.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's going to come up.
Iran.
Oh, yeah. It's like the full Rose Gallery on display. This is actually kind of. It's fun. It would be fun if it wasn't so fucking terrible.
Orion, what have you been trying to say? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
a couple of things that stood out about this that kind of track throughout Anna Subri's contributions to the entire book. Firstly, I'm absolutely convinced that rather than her writing it down and emailing it to the editor, is that either Mr. McNabb or Anne Coffey just sat her down in a wine bar with a tape recorder running. It's got that vibe to it of just kind of rambling and trying to edit it into something coherent. And also, like, every single I think literally every single contribution, but certainly most of them have her highlighting unprovoked either an anecdote that shows she's not racist or an anecdote that shows she's not homophobic, or both. She's really, really, really desperate to impress that on us.
Also, just like these weird boasts, like, I learned something about myself. I've got a peculiar mind. I've got a semi-photographic memory. I'm one of those people who has to see things in my head to understand something. Is that what that is?
A semi-photographic memory is just having a good memory. Sure.
Yeah, right.
I've got a semi-photographic memory. Yeah, like, apparently.
Remember some images. Yeah.
When I've not had several pints, I have a semi-photographic memory. Everyone, you heard it here first.
And then yeah, she starts saying real people in the real world every 2 fucking sentences.
Her thing with like. I got fed up with politics and I didn't like the Tory party anymore because they were too right-wing under Ian Duncan Smith, so I left. And then her story of like why she rejoined is like, yes, I saw one single interview where someone was talking about drugs and crime, talking lots of sense. I remember this interview very clearly, and at the conclusion I thought, I don't know who that is, but whoever it is, my God, he's talking sense. And it was Oliver Letwin.
Oh, fucking God.
But he's got opinions on drugs and crime.
I like how everyone gets
I've had enough of this. I'm going to rejoin the Conservative Party. Is there an exact reaction to Oliver Letwin?
Like, you know, there's these black discos that are causing crime, which is stuff that he did fucking write in a big report for Margaret Thatcher in the 80s.
Keeps being racist and
those,
an accident.
Yeah,
and those are specific issues that she highlighted his views.
Yeah, there's this thing where Anna Subri is like, man, I don't understand how the Tory party became so anti-immigrant. And I'm like, what? How do you not... It's really... Who could possibly say how that happened? You know,
here's some real like alien just landed on Earth shit from Anna Subri. The SDP had been formed, but I decided not to join them. This is important to me because it shows what I believe in and have always believed in. My political beliefs are important to me, and I am not afraid of saying I'm sorry, but I don't want to be involved in this thing anymore. It's just like that fucking free-spirited P guy, that weird Tory activist who had a fucking blog called centristdad.com where he wrote shit like, I am a Tory and a conservative. I am a centrist and a Tory. It's just like fucking drivel.
Geraint, did you want to add anything before we move on to the second most important figure in this book?
I think it's time to move on. I think to get to the, not quite the meat, but the main support act, if you like.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, sorry.
He's the main support. Yeah. This is the guy before the main guy. It's MP for near me, former MP for nearby me, too near, and former member of my CLP that I'm also a former member of. Piss Leslie, everyone! It's time. And the photo is of him talking to a meeting of supporters in Nottingham in April 2019. And I'm like, I think all of these people are fucking
you
pricks.
were there.
I was there on the cover because I was there. I was like, Chris, yes, tell me more about how better things aren't possible and why you only appeared in the city when you were about to defect. Because he was literally never here. Literally,
he's usually in the city as in of London. He's talking to like fucking capitalist fucking pricks.
Yeah,
like
never in Nottingham. Never
again.
Set foot in the city.
You start to get like the abiding themes of Chris Leslie thought in this, like which is that like Anna Subri, she's got this big bit about how she like met the Tory members and like to be honest, understandably, she was like fucking hell, these people are horrible, they're freaks. I don't have anything in common with these people. And Chris Leslie is totally like that with the Labour membership. Like he hates them.
Yeah,
like he doesn't think they should have any say in anything.
One of the funniest bits is right at the start where he skipped school to try and own some fucking Tory minister. and he just asks him a question and the Tory minister ignores him, and it's like, I fucking showed him! Yeah. I got him!
Yeah. Well, hang on, let me get into just opposing the government and opposing the Conservatives. I'm afraid it's the hard left who they want to tighten their control. They want to sideline moderate voices. I'm afraid it's the hard left who are the hard left, Chris? Well, we know who the hard left are. They want to... fuck the order.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've listened to it enough to know it.
The dissent. Have I got the dissent? Yeah. The national. Anyway,
too right wing.
Printing money, nationalise it. You just said we were too right wing. I mean, this is what I wanted to do. I decided it would be worth walking around for a while, and after this MP passed through the BHS store, I managed to stand in front of him. Quite confident for a teenager, he writes with a little exclamation mark, and said, My school roof is held up with chicken wire to stop it falling on our heads. What are you going to do about that? Looking back...
the chicken wire.
Yeah.
This is like how Chris... this is his hilarious punchline of the story. It's like when fucking Keir Starmer told that hilarious stand-up routine about going into the wrong hotel room. He's like, looking back, it must have been quite a strange thing for him to encounter. Anyway, then he says he about to get into this politics business. And at the time, Chris Leslie was... I don't know if he was the youngest MP ever, but he was the youngest MP in the House. And at the time, and there's a bit of TV news footage from the time that shows him as a very young MP, like 24 years old, and he says how he didn't know whether he wanted to join Labour or the Conservatives. It just seems how basically he just went with Labour because it looked like they were going to win under Tony Blair.
Also, does anyone want to guess in the chat what Chris Leslie's degree was in? What was his degree in? You will not need many guesses.
Being a wanker.
Sorry? Basically, yes. The person in the room got it immediately. Yeah, people saying PPE, you've basically got it right. And I will let... Piss is also an acceptable answer. His politics and parliamentary studies at Leeds University. F's in the chat for Leeds University because he is one of your alumni. Too bad for you.
He attempts to destroy Bernie Sanders' left-wing credibility by revealing that he used to work for him when he was a congressman.
I actually want to read that section out because it's fucking insane. I ended up working for then Congressman Bernie Sanders, which will probably surprise quite a few on the left, but Bernie was an American progressive, not an anti-West Marxist who understood the importance of national security, didn't for a minute entertain anti-Semitism, and who loved this country. I mean, what the... And first of all, didn't Bernie Sanders get in trouble for attending a Sandinista rally where they said, kill the Yankee? That heavily implies that he's anti-West in some fashion.
Well, yeah, I mean, Chris Leslie just anything for a shot against Corbyn. Mike Gapes hates Bernie Sanders. He's entirely consistent on this stuff.
Actually, Mike Gapes' insight about Bernie Sanders and how it related to Jeremy Corbyn was the best insight in the entire book. Because he's like, well, I guess it's kind of the same thing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, kinda. You kind of got it there, Gapes.
Yeah. He's like, they are going for this elderly white man. Why not Gapes? He is elderly. He is white. Why do they not flock to the Gapes? It's like, you do flock to the Gapes, mate.
We'll get to that, because there are some weird parallels between Mike Gapes and Jeremy Corbyn's early life that I'm like, he really is like the anti-Corbyn in almost every way.
Oh yeah, I've highlighted all the good bits in the Gapes chapter for when.
But yeah, that's pretty much Piss Leslie done. Oh, we got Joan Ryan. Fuck. Before we get to
Joan Ryan's is fucking. Actually, it's really horrible. She's an awful person. I think we should talk about her and save the best for last. But the longest for last as well. Gapes took up so fucking much. It's its own section of the book. But just Chris Leslie just throws out a bit of shit as well about how Labour was seen as wasting taxpayers' money. It's all the taxpayer, not the worker or anything with these guys. And he also says that he picked up a fairly Atlanticist attitude in his global outlook, or fairly...
Understatement, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moderate in all things, except that, maybe.
Yeah, it just loads of shit about how great Tony Blair is, and then pretty much a little shot at local Labour Party activists, and people like Corbyn, I presume, who played to the gallery of them. But
yeah. Basically, Chris Leslie is pretty boring, but there are like little bits of him being a massive dipshit that are kind of fun. Joan Ryan is just fucking grim. Should we tackle Joan Ryan? The picture of her, I'm not kidding, holding a giant poppy. Respect. I'm not even fucking joking.
Like the poppy's almost as big as she is. Like it's huge.
Daddy Poppy.
There's so much respect in that photo.
I can't fucking. I maximum respect right there.
I'm saluting the photo. I don't want to, but like
you simply must.
My ancient lizard brain is like forcing me to as an involuntary response.
Yeah. So you get the sense of how this is going to play out in her section. Basically, her early life is fucking boring, and she was a teacher. I feel bad for those kids.
She talks about like conflict resolution, which you should certainly see a lot of conflict resolution from Labour Friends of Israel. And then the next paragraph she drops off like she worked for a time as an oral historian at the Imperial War Museum. You're like,
she was on the side of Imperial War. She was the one who was the pro-Imperial War. Yeah.
She loves imperialism. She loves war. And then like within 2 fucking sentences, she's like linked like Labour under Corbyn to the Holocaust. Just thrown in a load of like heavy Holocaust shit, and then just straight up like it is truly shaming that the Labour Party blah 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 blah, like disgusting fucking shit. And then just like within that same paragraph, she's just on to a vote for Corbyn could not be only be a betrayal of the Jewish community. It would like just literally total instrumentalization of the Holocaust.
Also, very ahistorical understanding of what the Labour Party was and is. One of my notes on like a bit that Joan Ryan puts in the book is she needs to learn what the definition of the word institutional is, because she clearly doesn't fucking know. Or she does know and she's a fucking liar.
Institutions, what Change UK was not, never became.
And then there's this bit here where she's basically saying that she campaigned to cut aid to the Palestinian Authority, which, because she's a piece of shit, basically. To put it in the lightest possible terms. She is a bad person.
Absolute piece of shit. Yeah, chair of Labour Friends of Israel from 2015 to 19. Yeah, she basically, got funds withdrawn from Palestinian Authority. She worked with the Alliance for Middle East Peace, which I bet is some fucking State Department front bullshit, to promote the establishment of an international fund for Israeli-Palestinian peace, which certainly sounds like a alleged embezzlement operation, possibly, potentially, in a hypothetical situation.
Yeah. She also mentions that she was re-elected in 2017 with an increased majority. Declines to mention who that was thanks to.
No, it was the Ryan effect.
Yeah. Everyone was like, you know who I want to vote for? This disgusting anti-Palestinian racist. That's who I want to vote for.
Ryan personal vote is strong.
Yeah, many people are saying it. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're going to see the personal vote thing come up a lot. Mike Gapes is very particular about what his personal vote is.
Gates has great personal vote stuff, and also, a fucking awesome bit about Palestine and how great he is on Palestine.
He talks about Kurdish people, and he's like, yes, this Kurdish party are like the Democratic Party, and I'm like, oh, really, Mike? But here we are. We're on to the good stuff, everyone. Get your Gapes emotes going if you've got them. Mike Gapes, MP for Ilford South. His picture is of him at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly in Tirana.
Let's get that back up, because I was mostly trying to show the milk that I wrote in highlighter. There you go. Look,
gonna drop the Gapes emotes for you all.
NATO shebang. No, it's not even NATO. It's like losers who fuck NATO. That kind of shit.
Yeah, that's basically what this is. And there you go.
Yeah, Gapes.
Got the Gapes' going in the chat. All right. I like how he opens with, like, I collected stamps from an early age.
Wait,
Incredible.
so that thing that I
Incredible.
said that a State Department front does seem to be basically a State Department front. No evidence on the embezzling stuff. The embezzlement stuff I'm working on. Watch out, the scoop's coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Gapes thing. So I guess I better do some reading.
That's right. This is where Jack coming on the stream pays off for us all.
I've got all the best bits highlighted, so let's go from the very top. Not as in read all of it, but let's start at the start. I was always very interested in other countries. I collected stamps from an early age. Right in there, he's got you hooked. Like, he likes other countries. He likes stamps. He likes geography and history. His dad he refers to here as Frank, but you out there might know him as the Tragedy of Austria. He was a quiet, thoughtful man, naturally after what happened to him. But he talked to Gapes about politics a lot. His mum was called Sis, apparently, brackets Emily. Anyway, I have fond memories of climbing the big oak tree at the bottom of our garden.
Oh man. Imagining Mike Gapes trying to climb a tree is
because when he was even younger than that, he planted the seed that grew from an acorn into a big tree.
He's actually playing around with time here. He's for dramatic effect mixing up different stages of his life, and he had fond memories of climbing the big oak tree and like.
Someone has suggested Gapecast stamp collection episode.
Oh yeah, I've corrected it here. He accidentally wrote, I decided to do a gap year. Obviously, that should say Gape year.
That's right.
I spent
Every year is Gape year.
I spent a year doing voluntary service overseas in the OAS. No, not in the OAS, the precursor organization to the CIA. Teaching classes of 57 and 48 at a rural mission school in Swaziland. I don't think that's what the OAS is. That's the Organization of American States. Anyway, that was also a CIA fucking State Department load of bullshit, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, he's doing his Gape year in Swaziland. A small, poor, recently independent landlocked country next to apartheid South Africa and Portuguese colonial Mozambique. Right, so then, yeah, Gape says he was very left-wing. He joined all the left-wing third worldist and anti-racist political societies.
Man, you wonder what happened to him. Oh wait, he actually says later what happened to him because he was involved in a very bad organization. Just like
joined National Organisation of Labour Students (NOLS) after being elected onto the left slate to be executive of the Cambridge Student Union. So yeah, real already selling out. He was then elected as the founder convener of the Clause 4 group. We were left-wing democratic socialists, but we were not Trotskyists.
I made the note here that it's interesting how these people can always really hone in and get great resolution on ideologies when it's about them. But when it's anyone else, it's like, no, you're all communists, you're all Trots, you're all Stalinist Trots.
Russian
as if,
trolls,
very interesting. Just my own note.
Yes, and also, there's some stuff about, like, just very boring sectarian, like, 70s student politics bullshit. I think we can skip that. Anyway.
I want to read out this section where he makes Jeremy Corbyn sound fucking amazing.
Well, not till then, and also shouldn't it be in the voice? Anyway, but just, like, he does talk about this. There's this great anecdote about when he was representing the Council of European National Youth Committees. Again, just boring, like, I held this position, I was the photocopy boy for this person, very impressive, they didn't even have photocopies at the time. Then basically he drops this little fucking anecdote, which is pure Gapes. I learned a lot about politics internationally in the BYC and CENYC and CSNY. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I represented CSNY on the Presidium of the World Youth Festival in Havana, Cuba, in August 1978, where, much to the annoyance of the Soviets and Cubans, I almost single-handedly held up and toned down the final festival declaration.
Oh, fucking hell.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we really appreciate it. See, sometimes I debate having the drops on so people can just play "Thanks, Mike" so whenever we do like that, but I think it's better for the audio for us not.
I think I'd find it distracting. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, that's great. Just Gapes out there, fucking interfering with Cuban politics on behalf of the CIA. Classic stuff.
Oh man. I like the bit where he lost badly in his first election. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, in Ilford North. Yeah. No, blames it on Labour's left-wing policies.
Yeah, but in contrast, the other guy, the bastard man, won his seat against an SDP splitter. So,
yeah.
Who can say whether it was Mike Gapes being a piece of shit that was the problem? Who could say?
Was that the bit you were going to read, Sinan? Because I just got to send a text 1 second.
Yeah, I don't want you to wear out the voice. So
no, it's cool.
Yeah, it was in contrast Jeremy Corbyn, that bit from there on. Because he just makes this Jeremy Corbyn fella sound really cool.
He does indeed. Well, not hard. He's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Yes. So, then there's this stuff about how he was Neil Kinnock and his chief of staff, Charles Clarke. Hey, right, Sinan? Yeah, friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
With a terrible son. Regarded me as one of the handful of people in the party head office that they could totally trust. That sucks when you can't trust people at the party head office. I'd hate to be a leader who had to deal with that.
Man, imagine that, eh?
Yeah. Then he basically says, although he was not a head of department, I was called over to advise on major speeches and debates, and sometimes held before Prime Minister's questions. I was in the trenches with Neil, fighting the Trots and working to make Labour re-electable. That's it, that fucking word. Long before Tony Blair benefited from what Neil Kinnock and John Smith had achieved in the previous years. I was very disappointed when Neil wasn't elected as a Prime Minister. So, years later, when I was asked, are you a Blairite or a Brownite? I would say, no, I'm a Kinnockite. I was always a Kinnockite.
He's always got a way to choose a third way somehow, hasn't he?
I know.
Matter how straightforward the question.
I was always a fucking loser.
Yeah, basically. But I just want to point out for people in chat, that was exactly as it was written in the book. There was nothing added. That is actually the text in the book. The trenches bit is real. That's all.
I should say, I've got a horrible cold, so I'm coughing not just because of the Gapes impression, but because of the Gapes impression combined with having the horrible cold.
I was aware of the cold, which is why I'm not forcing Jack to read every section of the Gapes bit in the voice. Well, hopefully not.
It's not you're not forcing me. It's a choice.
Yeah.
Just love that. Yeah, such an emotional fucking moment. Need to lighters aloft, need a candle in the wind playing. I was always a Kinnockite.
God, what a loser.
Yeah, then he's banging on about the Soviet Union, blah, 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 how he was a fly on the wall in many important meetings. Again, like Anne Coffey, she got to sit in on very important meetings.
She got to make the tea. Like Mike
did.
I presume Mike was bringing the milk.
Yeah, Gapes was just making milk. And And then, Gates is selected to be the candidate for Ilford South, and he gets into Parliament, but then Neil Kinnock doesn't become Prime Minister. I was personally elated, but shattered by Labour not winning overall, and Neil Kinnock not being Prime Minister. Before he left as leader, Neil Kinnock put me straight away onto the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Like, just some evil shit from Neil Kinnock. Like, right, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna inflict maximum damage on world peace by appointing Gapes to this influential position in British foreign policy.
I do kind of like how Gapes is this perfect mirror of Corbyn, though, because they're both, like, foreign policy heads, but, like, Gapes just does it for evil. And, like, you even see it in, like, the bit where he complains about Northern Ireland, where he's like, actually, Corbyn was with the bad group, and I was with the only good group. And I'm like, well, we'll see when we get there. But he's mad at Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell because they support the troops out movement, which, by the way, yes, British troops should be out. That seems fair enough to me.
About the troops out movement, he says, it was run by prominent far-left supporters of the Provisional IRA and was endorsed by some left Labour MPs, including Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. I loved my 2 years in the Northern Ireland office team. They treated me like an extra minister. It's just like Gapes, like, they treated me like a prince, like a little Austrian prince, dressed in pantaloons, lederhosen,
Mike Gapes in the big sailor suit and a lollipop.
My little pigtail and my lollipop. Yeah, exactly.
Please, no one make that graphic. People have a habit of making these things into graphics. Don't make that one. I've suffered enough.
But he just loves, like, the cushy fucking all the benefits of being an MP, like the groupies and the Gape goons and shit.
I forget how long Gapes' bit is. Fucking hell, he takes up a lot of the real estate in this book, as he should.
Oh man, yeah, he's got this bit, so he's like talking about how I've been outspoken in Parliament against anti-Semitism. Then he talks about some stuff which he did do, like he introduced a private members bill to make Holocaust denial a criminal offence. Then, of course, he goes to his membership of Labour Friends of Israel, which I wouldn't necessarily see as active anti-Semitism, but he also says he's been strongly critical of the Iranian regime, as he will continue to be.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I had also supported the anti-terrorism legislation introduced by Labour. So he voted for all the Islamophobic policies, don't worry.
He gets mad because he goes, that for my Islamist critics meant I was a Zionist Islamophobe in this earlier section. Yeah. And I'm like, Mike, that's not why people call you that. They call you that because you are a Zionist and an Islamophobe. You can kind of, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like,
I just want to, read that section. Like, he says... he sort of he wants to emphasize that he sees both sides of the conflict. So he says that he's endorsed a two-state position, blah blah blah. Everyone says they endorse a two-state position. Yeah. And then he says, when I was chair of NOLS, we had produced a leaflet which said Palestinians had rights too.
I mean, it's literally
and that's it. That's all he says in a pro-Palestinian. Like, he's got it. They have rights too. Like, he's like, well, look, I said that they are human beings, you see. It's like, wow.
Yeah, and the thing is, isn't that, like, the peak of that tweet that's, like, I forget what the original tweet is because everyone's, like, photoshopped over it, but it's, like, the tweet, that's enough activism for today. He's literally just done that. Like, but in leaflet form.
He says that the people he will refer to later as local Ilford Islamists distributed leaflets saying, Mike Gapes, no friend of the Muslims, a true friend of Israel. He represents Tel Aviv, not Ilford South. Like, I'm just doing it in his voice, because who knows if it actually said that, or if that's just, like, Gapes' addled recollection.
Also, like, that's an insane leaflet. Do not do that.
I think so much shit in this book is just straight up made up. But then, he's just like, David Blunkett is a phenomenal politician.
I mean, that's a word for it, certainly.
he just like drops casually how he no longer expected to be a minister. He doesn't really elaborate on that. I guess he just like was about 60 and nothing had happened in his career really. So, and then we get to, in Gapes' words, the controversial 2003 intervention to remove the Ba'athist fascist regime of Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
Like, it just reminds me of like one of our Gape casts. He's like, well, like, you know, Klaus Kinski, who acted in Werner Herzog films, like, he used to go around, like, I think, British campuses doing his, like, one-man show where he played Jesus and just heckle the audience, and they'd heckle him and get into fucking pitched rows. We basically had a thing where, like, in the Gape verse, Mike Gapes had like done a Jesus tour, and the Gape Fest concerts that he put on was his return to the stage, and Jimothy's like, Mike, is it true that this is your first performance since your controversial Jesus tour? And then we play a clip and it's just Gape screaming like, I'll fucking kill you, I'm Mike Gapes, the man who is Jesus, and like threatening to bomb the place. And yeah, the controversial Iraq war, I love that.
Yeah, very controversial. That's the he's picked the mildest possible way to describe the Iraq War, and you know what? I can respect his commitment to it. In fact, his commitment was so strong. I think Jack will want to highlight this bit. Like,
this next paragraph is some fucking sick shit, man.
It's insane.
It's like the most twisted fucking shit.
I legitimately okay, I'm going to provide some context for everyone. I legit had to like stop reading at this point and just sort of read it again because I was like, that can't be like, what he actually said.
Who the fuck is this guy? Like, I was like, this guy is actually a fucking, like, ancient demonic entity, because this is fucking cold. So, in March and February 2003, my wife was seriously ill. I had been given time off by the whips because of this, and the need to care for our 3 young children. I had an excuse to stay away from a difficult vote. But if I had abstained, people in the constituency and elsewhere would have assumed that I was a rebel against Tony Blair. That would have been easier politically, but it was dishonest. It would also have been a betrayal of Iraqi, Kurdish, socialist, and democratic friends who I had known for many years. So then he calls up Joan Ryan and is just like, I'm coming in to vote for the Iraq war. You can count on me. It is war. I'm there. I'm a good soldier of imperialism. As a result of my vote for the Labour government motion in March 2003, I faced a lot of hostility locally. Thousands of my constituents were Muslims, and most of them had probably voted for me in 2001. I knew many were... Why were they angry?
Yeah, why were they angry, Mike? I mean, is it because you voted for all of the fucking security shit that demonized Muslims and a war that killed a fucking bunch of people for no good reason? I can't possibly say.
Who knows? He says, this is a great bit. He says, I knew many were very angry with the position I took. My friend Baram Salih, later president of Iraq, of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan.
I will just say that the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan is the melt party in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Of
course it is.
They're like the centre, they're the centre left. Like, look, I can't endorse the one group that I want to endorse, but the HDP in Turkey, much better, much more based. Their sister party and their associated groups, much better. And we will leave it there.
So he had come into Parliament to speak to Labour MPs, probably to that Labour Friends of Iraq group. It's just like a pressure group for invading Iraq. He thanked me for my support and gave an interview to the Ilford Recorder, explaining why he, as an Iraqi Kurd and Sunni Muslim, wanted an intervention to remove Saddam. So I just love that, just like imagining fucking Jimothy Baker being like packed off by Gapes to do this softball interview with this fucking like US regime change stooge. It's just like, yes, as an Iraqi, here is why I think Iraq should be absolutely destroyed by the United States and Britain. Just like this gullible journalist, like, yes, so tell me more about why there should be a war.
Yes, Teo pointing out it is fucking wild that he is so violently racist and an MP where he is. Yeah, welcome to the Labour Party's many fiefdoms and so on, where you just can't get rid of these cunts.
That is.
Well, I mean, we did get rid of him, I guess, but
that's honestly incredible, though, that he just like left his seriously ill wife's bedside to go and vote for the Iraq War because primarily, if he didn't, he thought it might make it look like he wasn't loyal to Tony Blair.
Yeah,
really sheds some light on the immortal line, doesn't it? I've been through a divorce. I know what divorce is like.
Yeah, I know, right?
Shit, Mike.
Yeah,
why?
I'm like, Mike, she might have divorced you. In fact, it's kind of the same reason you had to leave the Labour Party. Like, because you were just so in love with war that you couldn't stay.
So then he says, far-left groups and local Ilford Islamists saw my vote to intervene in Iraq as an opportunity to get rid of me. About 40 protesters, mainly from outside Ilford. Those, like, fucking false flag actors sent down by a young Sam Tarry.
That's right. How old must Sam Tarry have been at this point? He can't have been very old.
Milne was very powerful working at the Guardian comment section.
Milne directly targeting Mike Gapes.
This feels like the work of Milne to me. So they disrupted his constituency advice surgery, and there was a petition and a march against him. But I just stood firm and didn't back off. After a year or so, I began to again receive invitations to attend events from local Muslim organisations. So just like, they're just a whole year, like, the Muslim community of Ilford and Gapes were like completely at like an impasse. Like there was not a communication between them. Like
you could see in the 2019 hustings that someone filmed and put on YouTube that there was still huge tension there.
That hustings is amazing. I might have to watch those hustings on stream at some point. Because like Mike Gapes was getting dunked on worse than the Tory, which was fucking amazing. It's so
how much
good.
Gapes have we got?
We've got a lot of fucking Gapes.
Just in this section.
There's a bit where Mike Gapes thinks Jeremy Corbyn bullied him. Like
before, I think, like, just going in chronological order through here, he talks about his time as chair of a Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Highlights of my 5 years included questioning a living god, myself, Michael Gapes. No, sorry, he says a living god, the Dalai Lama. His evidence session was a media fest, with members of the public queuing in to get in, and several overthrows. Before he began, he foraged in a bag and pulled out something and said, "Ah, sweetie." And then Gapes like sums up. He gives his verdict on the Dalai Lama. He is a really clever media performer.
Can I just say that Mike Gapes really likes the fucking media and the attention. Yeah. Like, he mentions, he remembers the exact number of interviews he has at any given point. It's fucking insane. I can't even remember what I have for breakfast most days. This guy's like, I had 63 fucking interviews after this event in 2011 or something. I'm like, oh my god, Mike, please.
He talks about how, as again, chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, which Mike Gapes was, insane. I know, so bizarre. But anyway, he met with the Chinese ambassador, Fu Ying, who went on to become foreign minister in China, he adds. And basically, she brought a series of books for him about the CIA's role in Tibet. And I can just imagine him being like, "Why are you bringing me this? I know what we did in Tibet."
I was going to say, he probably read it approvingly. He's like, "Oh, really? That's good. Yeah, we should keep doing that."
Would you hand God a copy of the Bible? But yeah, anyway, he then goes off for a huge paragraph about how he hates China and thinks the only way to deal with a bully like Corbyn is to stand resolute and stick to your principles.
Okay, he doesn't actually say like Corbyn, but that is heavily fucking implied.
Yeah.
He genuinely believes he was the target of a bullying campaign, which I suppose in a technical sense, given the Gapecast and so on, he might well be. But
I am the target of a biological warfare campaign, this so-called pandemic spread by Corbyn and his Chinese communist comrades to personally spite me, Michael Gapes.
Oh man. We also get the classic line at the end of this, but we're going to keep going through it chronologically. I keep skipping ahead and I'm like, oh yes, there's so much good shit.
Well, actually, there's kind of a good bit where he's actually like critical of Jack Straw and David Miliband over the over torture, but then he like really fucks it up by like he says that he led a delegation in 2006. I led a delegation from the FAC to Guantanamo Bay, which like is probably where he belongs ultimately for all the imperial war that he has sanctioned. But later that year, we went to Belmarsh Prison for a comparison to see the maximum security prison for terrorists in this country. The detailed report of our visit recommended that Guantanamo could not simply be shut. Some of the people there were extremely dangerous. The US should transfer some prisoners to the US mainland, and the UK and the international community should assist in taking others. And it's like, oh, thanks, Mike. Like, I thought that the people were just talking about closing Guantanamo and just, like, saying to all the people who are, like, convicted terrorists, just like, there you go, mate. Here's a bomb. New York.
Well, don't you know, as soon as you're released from Guantanamo, they send you to a farm where you get to frolic with all the other terrorists. That's how that works, isn't it?
I love that Gapes' like huge idea is like, well, you know, we can't just close Guantanamo and like let all the prisoners out. And it's like,
what does he think is going to happen?
Anyone suggesting that?
There's a whole lot of stuff here where no one suggests a thing, and they're like, they're suggesting this, and I'm like, no one said that. Who said this? I don't understand.
Yeah, final paragraph, I think, is the last good bit in here.
That's the bit with the line. He's going to say the line, everyone. I hope you're excited.
Yeah, so he's talking about, but you know, being on the fucking committee and shit. Like, all of this is about his time on the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, really. That's been, like, the apex of his life. But he says, blah, 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 I served from blah, blah, blah to blah, 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 under all these fucking Tories who were perfectly fine with him serving, he's saying.
Yeah.
Then Ian Austin and I... Ian Austin, famous for his dogged pursuit of justice.
Man who is not interested in dog tallow at all, as we established on the Witcher streams.
Yeah, they were vindictively purged by the whipped vote of Corbyn Labour. Yeah, I think that's the first time he says Corbyn Labour in here. In April 2019, after we had resigned from the party, he ends it on this like beautifully huffy note. It is worth noting that Labour never purged the people who joined the SDP in the 80s. They let them stay on the select committees. That's what they mean by the kinder, gentler politics, I presume.
He said the line, everyone. He did it. We knew he had it. He rattles off all the hits. Like, I'm impressed by Mike Gapes' ability to just rattle off the hits. Like,
I'm just going across the room to get myself a cup of tea because I need to drink some liquids after
Gapes' voice. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, he rattles off all the hits. It's amazing. This is like the best bit. Guys, it's all downhill from here, and it wasn't like we were starting at a particularly high level to begin with.
Wait, sorry guys, 1 second.
Yeah. Geraint, did you have anything to add? You've just been sitting there patiently.
I mean, I think the Gapes bits kind of speak for themselves, really. It's kind of tragic, but that is the first example in the book of an incident that we all sort of took the piss out of on Twitter at the time. him and Ian Austin getting booted off the committee that clearly like really hurts him even more than we thought it would. There's a good one that comes up a few times in the book with Chris Leslie later on. And they're just so rattled by like. Oh
yes, there's such a good bit with Chris Leslie. Yeah. Oh my god,
Chris Leslie and John McDonnell back when he had a backbone, and the rare occasions when the left are actually like
good,
quite rude to them rather than just like disagree to disagree. They take it so badly, and it's so funny every time. Yeah,
the Chris Leslie bit is so good. Like, you all don't know. If you don't know this story, you're all going to want to stick around for it, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I would have done in the situation, which tells you it must have been really good. Although I might not have done them the courtesy of keeping it contained. Who can say? Oh, it's so good. Yeah, you do get some nice anecdotes in here of times they got owned really hard, but now we're into the awfully formatted bit that upsets me, because they write it like a fucking play in this next bit.
It's like one of these sort of oral history articles that they do about some beloved TV show or album or like disastrous public event.
I have to break the bad news to Red Tick Seed. You have missed the Gapes chapter, unfortunately. And I know that's what everyone was here for.
There is more Gapes. He pipes up a lot later on. You've not missed everything to do with Big Mike.
Yeah, and also there's like a lot of really fun shit about the other people. But yeah, you missed like, Mike Gapes doing the line. You know.
Gapes' account of the 2019 election is still to come, and that's one of the best bits of the book.
Oh, my laptop just told me my battery is running low, even though it's at 100%. I'm sure that's fine. I'm sure that's fine, everyone. We don't need to worry about that. The milk speech get mentioned. No, it doesn't get mentioned once, does it?
Never once. This is like Gapes' gambit to be seen as a serious politician in his twilight years.
That's going to be his follow-up book all on its own. Just like how I wrote the milk speech.
Yeah, please.
It's going to be like a meta book about like how he came up with this
It has been he has mentioned somewhere, it has been mentioned somewhere how that speech was written, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure in one of the ridiculous Melt books we've read that like the milk speech was mentioned.
I don't think they mentioned the milk speech in any book. If they did, nobody told me.
Yeah. We would have noticed for sure if it was mentioned. I think that's fair enough.
He's definitely elaborated on it like accidentally on our podcast when we cornered him.
Yeah,
he was talking about the point he was making there. But
the best interview in the history of interviews, some might say.
We'll never top that.
No, it's impossible until we get him on the stream somehow.
Yes.
I don't know how we're gonna do that, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, we got him on the podcast, so anything's possible. And by when I say we got him on the podcast, I of course mean the highly successful Gapecast docudrama series.
Yeah, and also, can I just say, some people think I was the person who was like talking to Mike in that. No, I wasn't. First of all, it wasn't me. It would have been very obvious if it was. I've had like two people say. I had two people say to me, was it you? And I was like, no, of course it wasn't me. How would I have got to fucking Ilford when I was in Broxlow the whole time? Like, I don't have time.
We needed someone who wouldn't be detected.
Yeah, like...
Because you were very few people who would be able to keep a straight face in
I wouldn't be able to keep a straight face. Like,
it's incredible.
You were in Broxtowe, obviously, to campaign for the other Change UK candidate.
Yeah, that's right. That's the little known fact. When I was doing all those selfies of me going, I was actually campaigning for Change UK. Fooled ya!
So did we start chapter 2?
No. We were just chatting shit. Yeah, we were about to, yeah.
Cool.
So this is apparently the starting point of the story, which, as everyone knows, I'm frustrated by how people start stories. Yeah. But anyway...
Yeah. We're now 24% of the way into the book, and it's the start of the story.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I gotta say, like, I do appreciate that Chris Leslie, the first thing he gets into is just, like, the soft left of fucking shit, wishy-washy bunch of cunts, terrible people. And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you on here.
Yeah, fair enough.
The worst person you know just made a great point.
Yeah. He's very critical of Ed Miliband as well. And they, like, even quote Ed Miliband as saying, like, some really wankery thing about Corbyn. So I'm just like, gone.
But they all shit on Ed Miliband for being too left wing. Like Mike
Yeah.
Japes puts it as his misguided year zero strategy of disowning our past and failing to defend the record of the Blair and Brown governments.
Yeah, there's also
That
this
would have
bit
got
where
that really well.
there's also the bit where Chris Leslie's like, I was the main media performer in 2015. I had to go out and defend Ed Miliband all the time, and I'm like, well, you did a fucking shit job then, didn't you? Fucking
It's
Christ.
so funny. It's again like him earlier talking about like confronting that MP when he's like, I imagine that was a shock to him, where he's like, again with an exclamation mark, he's like, I had to wing it, not easy, going up to defend Labour over the Ed Stone.
Which, by the way, was fucking crazy, and I feel bad for him. I would feel bad for him if I thought he was like remotely redeemable as a person, but he's not. What did Ed say about Corbyn? Yeah, what was the Ed Miliband Corbyn quote?
I can't remember. I'm sure we'll get to it.
We'll get to it, everyone. Don't worry about it. And also, does Chris Leslie talk about his photocopying work? Oh yeah, he doesn't mention it in those terms, but yeah, it's
So Gapes calls Liz Kendall the Eat Your Greens candidate, says the stupid members didn't want that difficult message.
I mean, it was a difficult
That's
message
quite
because
revealing,
it was...
isn't it? The Eat Your Greens candidate, they're clearly trying to put it across as sort of the difficult truths we have to get across, but I think to the public it just comes across like exactly what it is. Some boring tosser lecturing.
Nobody likes us.
You know? You can't have good things and you're stupid for wanting them.
Yeah, it didn't go down well. Well, it didn't go down well because it was fucking shit. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they talk about, like, the general electorate. I don't know if you two will remember. I don't know if the chat will necessarily remember it. Do you guys remember they did that debate between the Labour candidates in Nuneaton? Where they had, they did this debate between the Labour candidates in Nuneaton, and it was on the BBC. And they had, like, voters who went from Labour to Tory, mainly in the audience. And they were all like, yeah, we like Jeremy Corbyn. This woman's a fucking piece of shit, and we hate her, and we hate the other two because they don't say anything. Like, that was literally the polling result, you know?
Gapes slags off Andy Burnham here. He calls him the flip-flop.
I mean, fair play, to an extent. Like,
Can't argue with that.
I hope it's a shoe shaped like feet. Then like Chris Leslie's just like listing all these like fucking no marks in the leadership race. Yeah. Then he's like, and of course Corbyn was in that race as well. Like,
yeah, the eventual winner. Yeah, of course. Like the thing he blames 2015 on is really funny because he's like, oh, you know, it looked like they were going to be doing deals with the SNP. Fine, maybe. And he's like, yeah, Ed Miliband laid down signs we were going to be anti-business. What the fuck signs were they? I must have missed them.
He was castigating any sort of private sector activity and moralizing about behaviours.
When did Ed Miliband do that, though? I don't know when he did it.
He tries to pretend he's like angry about exploitative practices, calling them cretinous in the private sector. But then he says that Ed Miliband, he alienated those ubiquitous ordinary people by sounding anti-private sector. You know, all kind of keywords with Chris Leslie and private sector.
Oh yeah, then we get to the Gapes bit where he's like, "Oh, I suppose Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn are somewhat similar phenomenons because it's these old white men who get outside support."
Yeah, I just love this bit. He talks about the £3 membership scheme, basically blames Corbyn's leadership on that, when actually that just made it a bit more emphatic. Many came in from the Greens, various far left groups, ex-Trots who'd been expelled from the party or left it in the 1970s, 80s and 90s. There were also some enthusiastic young people inspired by and giving support to an elderly white man who'd never held a position of responsibility in his 32 years in Parliament. And it should have been me!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Basically the undercurrent of that.
There is an undercurrent of like, why didn't I get this?
Elderly white man who'd never held a position of responsibility.
Yeah, so this is why I was thinking of the Nuneaton thing, because Chris Leslie goes on to say, I felt that the lesson we need to take forward after the 2015 election was to try and broaden out and look at society, to have a story to tell at a wider level. So by that logic, Chris Leslie should have supported Jeremy Corbyn. These people refuse to acknowledge they're ideological. They're like, they'd be like, no, it's because they didn't have a vision or they didn't have this. I'm like, no, it's because you're right wing, you fucking idiot.
Yeah, well, he's very open about that later, about how Corbyn was electable and he just disagreed with all his left-wing politics.
Yeah.
I think this is great, in case anyone thought there was anything, noble and honourable about these people's fucking intentions. Just, read this book. They're just well, we hated Corbyn because he was anti-capitalist, he was anti-West, and he was anti-Semitic. And you're like, oh, so why was he anti-Semitic? And they're like, because he was anti-capitalist and he was anti-West. It's just in case you thought there was any kind of substance to the fucking unhinged shit that these people come out with about the people whose heads they've placed targets on. No, they're reprehensible people and fucking idiots and fucking weird people. Strange, twisted individuals.
Yeah, Chris Leslie drops, they're yearning for the 70s here, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, these people live in a fucking other world to us. That's all I'll say. And then
I like when Chris Leslie says MPs were emasculated during the leadership process.
Good.
A true cuck.
I mean, yeah, he really embodies the cuck spirit in every way. Anne Coffey's here. I made a bunch of notes here for some reason. I made one note on the Anne Coffey bit because she doesn't write very much here because she is the general author, we reckon. She is also the editor. But yeah, she says MPs failed in their gatekeeper role. Well, I mean, they shouldn't have that role. Gatekeeper, yeah. They should only elect Mike Gapes as leader.
Yeah. The keepers of the gapes.
And
that's me and FFF.
Yeah, this fucking bit wound me up where Chris Leslie's like, MPs who at least provided some semblance of a voice for the general public in there when he's referring to the electoral college.
Sure,
I'm like, Chris, who the fuck do you think members are? This is a thing that keeps recurring in lots of stuff where people are like, yes, if you are in a party, you are necessarily not in the general public and don't live in the real world. Mate, I can't fucking pay my rent. Get fucked.
Yeah.
You fucking
prick. You know how these Blairites have that catchphrase, but Iraq?
Yeah.
They say it's always one of the whataboutery things that the left does. Well, we'll always say, but Iraq, when they're being brilliant Blairites who are perfect in every other way other than they just happened to invade this one country that destabilized an entire region and killed up to 1 million people. So Chris Leslie plays the but Iraq card here. He says that Corbyn was able to play all the old tunes, including "We don't want the Blairites and their Iraq war." You can just imagine the contempt he said that with. Why would you not want the Iraq war? The Iraq war brought freedom. Don't you know that? Mike Gapes thought so. Chris Leslie, why are you not listening to the experts?
I also noted in that little bit before where Chris Leslie describes the emasculation bit. He says an internal party populism took hold, and we're back to everything I don't like is populism. Welcome back, everyone. In case
he means that momentum activists literally cut off his penis. That's why the Corbyn years were so traumatic for him.
Yeah, there's also this bit that follows on where he's like, please, we have an electorate, and we have an eye on the electorate. Please have an eye on the electorate, and what is in the real world.
Please, my electorate.
But they wanted what they perceived as purity rather than electability. And I'm like, who do you think? Do you think that these people aren't part of the electorate? What is wrong with these people? What critical part of their brain isn't there? What horrible prion did they get? I don't know. Jesus Christ, the fucking smoothness of the brains on display here is astonishing.
Well, of course, we talked about how Chris Clark, son of Charles, who's been mentioned in this book's visceral aversion to populist, particularly left populist politics, was because of his strong personal identification with the establishment on account of the symbiosis of his political views and upbringing as son of a major politician with whom he presumably has a good relationship. Well, similarly, Chris Leslie is affronted by the idea that Corbynism posed a radical break from the Blair and Brown years because he was there. He is the Blair and Brown years, and he doesn't want a radical break with himself. Like, he knew, as is stated in this book, that if Corbyn got in, his front bench career would be effectively over, and all his fucking shit would be outside his office in his fucking skip.
I just want to point out this bit by Mike Gapes where he says, "But unlike most MPs, I did not stay quiet." And I'm like, Mike, most MPs never. Mike, most MPs never shut the fuck up. Like, you weren't even in like the top 20 most running their mouth MP in this time period. You were just funny because you went ballistic about milk. Like,
So let's listen and notice from this little Gapes soliloquy what is absent, what major issue with Corbyn's politics, and integral, apparently, intertwined with Corbyn's view of foreign policy, Gapes at no point mentions here. If Jeremy becomes Labour leader next month, his anti-nuclear, anti-NATO, anti-American, anti-interventionist and Eurosceptic message will be welcomed by some in this country and by some abroad. But it is unlikely to be welcomed by Kurdish and other anti-Daesh forces in Iraq. Like, almost implying Corbyn's like the pro-ISIS candidate.
Yeah. I mean, that was Owen Smith famously.
Yeah, exactly. By anti-Assad Democrats in Syria, definitely implying Corbyn's pro-Assad there. By democratic Central European NATO states like Poland, or by Ukrainians.
So Poland and Ukraine famously fine, nothing wrong going on there. Definitely don't have far-right governments that are gonna, persecute minorities. Completely fine governments, totally okay.
I think what he's saying on the latter two is that Corbyn would be on the side of Russia in matters of Eastern European politics. However, I think that what is most notable is what he does not mention there is anything to do with Corbyn's virulent anti-Semitism, which becomes a major theme later in the book.
Yeah,
without seemingly Corbyn actually doing anything.
This was written on the 13th of August 2015. Yeah, 13th of August 2015. I want everyone to remember that. Completely fine. Nothing going on there. You'd think if your colleague of many years was a notorious anti-Semite, you would have said something during the leadership election. I don't know. Yeah. I would if one of my colleagues were,
Yeah, he might have found it surprising when Corbyn signed that anti-Semitism motion that Gapes passed that time. But I know that would be
very strange. Very strange how that happens.
Do you reckon Gapes personally reached out to him to sign it? Like,
do you know that there are
Jeremy will definitely sign this.
Do you know that there are really weird interactions of them before Corbyn became leader, where they're weirdly friendly to each other?
Yeah, well, exactly, because Gapes it's not about Corbyn as a man, is it? It's just Gapes hates trot politics and just allowed it to completely consume him. People like Corbyn to become avatars for everything he saw as a threat to his very existence.
One of my favourite ones is the interaction between Corbyn and Gapes dunking on the BBC, and I'm like, damn, the ultimate team up that we didn't know we needed, and we never got to see it, sadly.
Gapes is like, read the Ilford Inquirer, and Jeremy's like, I think Timothy Baker is a fantastic journalist. That's right. Well said, Mike.
There's also, so Anne Coffey decides to complain about Jeremy Corbyn here. I'll read this passage out. His understanding of fairness and equality reduced complex moral issues to an attempt to assemble opposing armies on a tribal battlefield. Translation for you all, he viewed politics as a battle between competing interests, instead of a comfortable little club for all the MPs and their staff to just sort of be like, we can pretend to oppose each other and screw everyone else. So that's basically the complaint at play there.
Well, I mean, these are people who literally couldn't even get on in a party with fucking hundreds of right-wing dickhead MPs. So, I mean, they definitely don't like to battle with people and be at odds with them. And then, well, actually, the best bit about this paragraph is the huge revelation that Anne Coffey did not vote for Jeremy Corbyn in the 2015 Labour leadership election.
Big news.
Bombshell.
Sorry for anyone who was holding out hope there.
She's a reformed Corbynista. Yeah, she says, like all leaders, he surrounded himself with people who agreed with him. This is, like, not the only time in the book that Anne Coffey, like, criticizes Corbyn and then is like, oh yeah, all leaders do that.
Yeah, she's like, I hate it when Jeremy Corbyn does it. I like it when everyone else does it. And I'm like, well, then that sounds like your problem is probably Jeremy Corbyn and not the actual practice at play.
She says, I thought his own political history and support for organisations with extreme views, and his apparent lack of enthusiasm for Queen and country would not be very acceptable to many people we relied on to support us at elections. Just like the most, like, small-time fucking, like...
Yeah, it's bootlicking...
twitching.
It's bootlicking fucking monarchy shagging shit. Which, you know,
sad people.
It's just sad. Like,
Queen
if
and
you think you require people to have enthusiasm for Queen and country, I think you might be an idiot. Like, I don't know.
You know what? Those fucking American Lana Del Rey stans have got the right idea, because, like, when she was like, R.I.P. Prince Philip, they were all like, ew, do you know that he married his cousin? That's my attitude to the monarchy.
Yeah.
Ew.
And also, I'd point out that a lot of those people didn't seem to have a fucking problem with it in 2017. And didn't have a problem with it then. I don't know what happened since. Next is kind of a really, really sad Gapes bit. We'll omit the sad part, but we see the first bit with his...
It's his incredible thoughts. Sorry, his innermost thoughts, not the song Incredible Thoughts by The Lonely Island. Which
is,
it looks like the new Messiah is going to win. I will not accept his policies, and I will not capitulate to the cult of JC.
He's very much a late Roman emperor here, being like, I will not capitulate to Christianity, I swear.
Yeah.
This is, oh god, I forgot what the name of the last pagan Roman emperor was. That's embarrassing for me. But yeah, he's desperately trying to hold on to the old ways.
Yeah, Neil Young album. Not
Julian the Apostate. Julian the Gapes. Very good.
Good one. Then Corbyn's elected, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then all of the mourning begins.
Classic Gapes zinger here. 12th of September 2015 was the day the leadership ballot was announced. I put a tweet out at 9:30am, which said, yesterday, Parliament voted against assisted suicide. Today, the Labour Party brings it back for political parties.
Damn, that's some peak Gapes content right there.
Euthanasia humour.
Yeah.
Gapes is like, one of the greats, like Farage's fucked face, Andrew Dice Clay, one of those like politically incorrect comedians who just like challenges the taboos.
And also, the person who wrote Emperor Polygonus Gapes, great reference to yesterday's stream. We'll be seeing Captain Polygonus again. We've got a graphic made of him. There's also the really fun bit where Chris Leslie gets owned. Do you want me to read that? Because it's not a...
Sure.
Yeah. I knew that was the beginning of quite a long period in the wilderness for me. It was quite symbolic of the time going into my office on the Monday after Corbyn got elected and finding all my office possessions in black bin bags outside the door. John McDonnell and his team had arranged to tip all my desk contents into the corridor. Fucking owned.
That makes it sound
the
like
quartermaster strikes.
That's right.
Makes it sound like they didn't even bother to get them in the bin bags, just like clean it up off the floor, you fucking parasite.
Fucking the level of owned Chris Leslie was. We love to see it. There's frankly no other way to think about it.
Nice photocopy you've got here, Chris. Be a terrible shame if everything was to do it.
Yeah. Oh man.
I'm pretty sure probably the first Chris Leslie use of hard left coming up.
Yeah.
He drops it on the next page, maybe. I felt uncomfortable with the hard left populist approach. There's got populism as well. It's got it all. He just constantly finds ways to rephrase hard left and populist to describe what he doesn't like.
Yeah.
Chris Leslie also, there's a lot of like conspiratorial thinking in here about their whole conception of what the left's doing is like steeped in conspiratorial logic.
Yeah, he basically lies. Well, sorry, Anne Coffey's the one who lies. This is formatted so terribly, I can't tell who's saying what half the time. Yeah.
No, Chris Leslie lies too.
He lies too, it just wasn't the lie I was thinking of. Sorry. Yeah, like half my notes for this are lie and name one and what. But yeah, this is obviously the EU they kind of start getting into the EU referendum stuff, and like one of the things here is that like he did little to support the Remain campaign. I'm like, that's a fucking lie.
He deliberately did little to support the Remain campaign. He like that's just like a conspiracy theory thing. Like, how do you know he was just saying, "Oh, I'm just going to like sit at home so Brexit happens"?
And one of the number one complaints they keep repeating across all of the people is he didn't campaign with the Conservatives during the EU referendum. And I'm like, hey, idiot. Did you see what happened in Scotland when you did that?
He campaigned more than any of these fucking losers did. More than Alan Johnson did. It's fucking bullshit. You know, really, if you wanted Brexit to happen, I'd think that you would actively campaign for Brexit rather than just do nothing and hope it panned out right, whilst ostensibly doing the thing that you didn't want to
There's
happen.
also this weird thing where people are like, well, he's unelectable and toxic and the public hate him, and they seem to think he could have single-handedly swung an entire referendum on the basis of his personal charisma and charm. Like, what the fuck are you people talking about, man? Like, also, we got a populism klaxon on the next page with Chris Leslie. He's back to populism and being angry at McDonnell. Mike Gapes continues to call Corbyn the Messiah. What happens in Gapes here?
Here's just Gapes got apparently tweet of the day from the Daily Mirror at the start of Labour Conference 2015. Shows like the support that Corbynism had from a supposedly Labour supporting press. This was their tweet of the day. Early start. First train from Ilford. Check map. 2015 manifesto. 1983 manifesto. Book on Trotskyist history. Tin hat.
It sounds like a really deranged version of Rorschach from Watchmen.
Yeah, oh my god. That's Gapes has just clearly had his mind melted. He had his mind melted in 2015.
Someone's wearing a tin hat, that's for sure. Someone did do that great Photoshop of Gapes, like in InfoWars with the tin hat on.
Oh, that's such a good image. If someone has that image,
this is so funny. He says, again, while attending a NATO parliamentary assembly, it's just the backdrop for this shit is always just Gapes is like attending some fucking NATO shit. Just like the NATO fan club, the NATO stamp collectors Association. He's attending this NATO meeting in Norway. He says, I'm not happy with the government position on Syria, but it is preferable to the pro-Putin pacifist hand-wringing coming from the Messiah and his acolytes. It's just like literally like pacifist pro-Putin. Like, make up your mind. Does he want to like support Putin's bloodshed, or does he not like any bloodshed?
And also pacifism, you can be a pacifist, not have opinions on it. It's not really a hand-wringing position. It's a pretty clear position, like whatever you think of it. Like
yes, sorry, then he just writes there is no Corbyn bounce. Obviously, I guess people had been like talking about a Corbyn bounce. Probably just like wanker journalists had been saying there had been no Corbyn bounce, and that was the first time anyone said Corbyn bounce. But Gapes is just writing in his diary, like thinking this is like such a fucking zinger. There is no Corbyn bounce. Cameron and Osborne have had a free hit against Labour as extremists with terrorist sympathisers as leader and shadow chancellor. I went on. Like, why doesn't he just like continue the quote
the thought,
instead of just say, I went on? Yeah, you certainly did, Mike. You went on and on.
That was the problem. That was the fucking problem, Mike. You went on.
he calls Momentum a far-left organisation and says it will be a front for pressuring and deselecting MPs. But you have thrown down the gauntlet, and I intend to fight back. And then he vows to enjoy himself until the end. Like, either, I guess, until, like, he gets deselected, or Corbynism in Corbyn's mind control induces a massive coronary. But then he speculates he may have to cause a big bang by-election in 2019.
Oh god, then we've got Anna Soubry bits, which I find really fucking uninteresting.
Just before the Soubs bit, which I've just written.